Hey gang, I'm Fahaam, your financial freedom guru. Let's turn your dreams into billionaire success stories. Today we're diving into the life and journey of a man who is often in the shadow of one of the most famous billionaires alive, but who himself was an absolute giant in the world of business, technology, sports, and philanthropy. This is the story of Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft, a visionary investor, and a man who lived a life of quiet brilliance, using his wealth not only to build but to give back. His life may not have been as public as Bill Gates, but his contributions shaped the tech world, the entertainment industry, and even the future of science. And his journey teaches us powerful lessons about money, success, health, and the importance of living with purpose. Paul Gardner Allen was born on January 21, 1953, in Seattle, Washington. His father was a librarian and his mother a schoolteacher, which gave Paul an upbringing filled with curiosity and a love for learning. He was not a loud kid. Instead, he was the kind of boy who loved books, who loved thinking deeply, and who had a natural interest in how things worked. That curiosity would later make him one of the true pioneers of the digital age. But the spark that would change his life forever came in high school when he met another student, a couple of years younger, named Bill Gates. They both attended Lakeside School, a private school in Seattle, and it was there that their friendship and their shared love for computers began. Now imagine the 1960s and early 70s. Computers back then weren't like the sleek laptops or phones we carry around today. They were massive machines, the size of rooms, expensive, and mostly limited to universities or big corporations. But Lakeside had a computer terminal, and Allen and Gates practically lived there, teaching themselves how to program, how to code, and how to push these machines to do incredible things. They weren't just kids playing around. They were hungry, determined, and obsessed with this technology that nobody else seemed to understand. After high school, Allen went to Washington State University, while Gates went to Harvard. But Allen, always impatient for the future, dropped out after 2 years. He believed the personal computer revolution was coming, and he didn't want to waste any time. He would often visit Gates at Harvard, and together they would dream about how the world was about to change. One day, Allen famously showed Gates the cover of a magazine featuring the Altair 8800, one of the first microcomputers. He told Gates, "This is it. This is what we've been waiting for." And he was right. That moment lit the fire that would give birth to Microsoft. In 1975, Allen and Gates founded Microsoft. Their goal was simple but revolutionary: to create software for these new personal computers that were just beginning to appear. Think about how bold that was. At the time, nobody knew if personal computers would even catch on. Most experts thought computers were for scientists and businesses, not for ordinary people. But Allen and Gates believed otherwise. They wrote software for the Altair, then for other machines, and slowly Microsoft began to grow. Allen, in particular, was known for his vision. He wasn't always the loudest in the room, but he could see where technology was headed. He believed that software was the key to unlocking the power of computers, and that belief turned out to be right. As Microsoft grew, Allen and Gates worked day and night. But then, in 1983, something happened that would change Allen's life forever. At just 30 years old, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, a type of cancer. The news shook him. Here he was, at the top of his game, building one of the most important companies in the world, and suddenly he was confronted with his own mortality. Allen decided to step away from the day-to-day operations of Microsoft. He resigned from his position but remained on the board of directors. For many, that might have seemed like the end of his story. But for Paul Allen, it was just the beginning of another chapter. Allen recovered from his illness, and with his Microsoft fortune, he began a journey of investments, exploration, and philanthropy that would define the rest of his life. He founded Vulcan Inc., his private company that managed his wide range of interests. And when I say wide, I mean incredibly diverse. Technology, real estate, aerospace, sports, music, museums, Allen had his hands in everything. He invested in companies like Charter Communications, one of the largest cable providers in the US. He funded Spaceship One, a project that successfully launched the first privately funded human spaceflight. He created the Allen Institute for Brain Science, dedicated to unlocking the mysteries of the human brain. He launched the Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence, pushing research in one of the most important fields of our time. He loved exploring the unknown, whether it was space, science, or even the deep sea. But Allen wasn't just about science and technology. He was a sports fanatic. In 1988, he bought the NBA's Portland Trail Blazers, saving the team from possibly leaving the city. Later, in 1997, he purchased the NFL's Seattle Seahawks, his hometown team. Under his ownership, the Seahawks went from being an average team to winning their first ever Super Bowl in 2014. Fans in Seattle still see him as the man who transformed their football dreams into reality. And he didn't stop there. He also owned part of the Seattle Sounders FC, the Major League Soccer team. Sports for Allen weren't just business. They were about community, about giving fans something to believe in. Beyond business and sports, Allen was a true philanthropist. Over his lifetime, he donated more than $2 billion to causes ranging from scientific research to education, from wildlife conservation to fighting homelessness. He wasn't flashy about it. He didn't do it for attention. He genuinely believed that wealth came with responsibility. One of his most powerful quotes was, "With all the resources I have, I want to make sure I'm doing good things for the world." And he lived by that. He funded museums like the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle, reflecting his deep love for music. He was a guitarist himself, often playing with famous musicians, and his love for rock and roll was legendary. He combined his passions, science, art, sports, and music, into a life that was full of richness, not just in money, but in meaning. But Paul Allen's story also carries a lesson about the fragility of life. In 2009, his cancer returned, this time as non-Hodgkin lymphoma. He continued to fight, continued to work, and continued to give back. But in 2018, at the age of 65, Paul Allen passed away. The world lost not just a billionaire, but a visionary, a quiet genius who never sought the spotlight but whose impact was felt everywhere. Bill Gates, his longtime friend and co-founder, said that personal computing would not have existed without Paul Allen. That's how important he was. So what do we take from Paul Allen's journey? For me, it's the idea that success isn't just about being the richest, or the most famous. Allen was often overshadowed by Gates, and yet he lived life on his own terms. He used his money to explore, to create, to invest in science and sports, to give back to society. He showed us that true financial freedom isn't about hoarding wealth. It's about using it as a tool to live the life you want, to follow your passions, and to make an impact on others. Allen could have stayed at Microsoft forever, but his illness forced him to step away. Instead of letting that end his journey, he used it to shape a life that was uniquely his own. In the end, Paul Allen's legacy is massive. He helped create Microsoft, one of the most valuable companies on earth. He invested in groundbreaking technologies. He brought championships to Seattle. He funded brain research that will impact generations. He gave billions to charity. And he lived a life that was true to himself. That's what financial freedom is all about. Not just the ability to buy anything you want, but the ability to shape your own story, to follow your passions, and to leave the world better than you found it. So the next time you think about billionaires, don't just think about the loud, flashy ones. Remember Paul Allen. The quiet visionary. The dreamer. The giver. The man who helped change the world, and who showed us that success is as much about what you give back as what you build.